Hey everybody, today I wanted to talk about differentiating between the UCL sprain or tear even and the common flexor tendon sprain or tear. And I apologize for my voice and any grossness that occurs during this video. I'm over that flu, but it wreaked havoc on me, so I'm still paying for it. And I figured I'd talk about this while I'm doing my rehab because I'm improving, and I figured it was a good time while I'm here by the table to explain the differences between how you diagnose and treat / rehab these injuries. It's really common for arm wrestlers to just know that they have elbow pain, all right? They'll know that in certain positions it's painful, or when they do certain movements like they squeeze or they bend their wrist, or if they supinate and drive sideways, whatever, they know that they're in some pain, okay? But usually they don't know whether it's the UCL or the common flexor tendon, and most of the time they haven't thought about it. They just know it's connective tissue in their elbows. And the structure of the elbow is not that complex, so there's actually, there are only a few things that you can hurt. If you know the structure of the elbow and you know a bit about anatomy, you can zero in on one or the other pretty quickly, because there are things that only really hurt when your tendon is injured and things that only really hurt when it's your UCL, okay? So let's start with the UCL. That's what I'm dealing with. With an ulnar collateral ligament injury, generally speaking, you won't have pain when you flex your wrist. You'll feel a little bit, because as you flex these muscles and the tendon balls up, it'll apply some pressure to the ulnar collateral ligament, but you shouldn't have any sharp pain. It should mostly just be a very slight, dull ache, okay? And any kind of grip or any of this stuff shouldn't really cause pain in the elbow, nothing significant. However, anything where your flexors are relaxed, okay, so your wrist is back, your hand is open, this is nice and relaxed, and then sideways, kind of this valgus pressure, if you know the anatomy, or rather anything that resists internal rotation, that causes strain on the ulnar collateral ligament. It will be generally more pronounced if you're in a supinated position, and especially if you're supinated and your arm is open and the pressure is not just straight sideways, but also going away from your humerus a little bit, okay? So it's not just trying to, twist your arm straight sideways, but it's also trying to pull your forearm a little bit away from your humerus. If you have significant pain when you press like that and you have a relaxed hand, you have relaxed forearm muscles, you can be pretty sure that it's the UCL. One other thing, the location of the UCL is not down here at the tip. It's a little further up and a little further in. There are two bundles that make up the UCL, and they kind of cross each other. There's one that's underneath and then one that's on top of it, a little bit more like this, okay? And they'll reach over here into the humeral area and extend to the connection point on the ulna, and both of these bundles will do that, okay? The common flexor tendon, on the other hand, is a very large structure. It connects all the way down here and covers a pretty good portion of that elbow, okay? So there's a lot of area covered up, and it connects to a lot of muscles, okay? So it's these flexors, finger flexors, your pronator, a lot of stuff connects to that common flexor tendon, okay? So if you have a common flexor tendon injury, you have, let's say, a sprain or a slight separation, it can, that separation can occur in a lot of different places along the connection to the bone, or even in the body of the tendon itself, but it's more common for it to be along the connection to the bone, okay? And because it can occur in a lot of different places, there are going to be some muscles that make that tendon hurt and some that don't, because they'll flex and only part of that tendon will really be under a lot of tension. And sure, when you load up and go sideways, if those muscles are active, it'll flare up even more. But generally, if you're getting significant sharp pain from some kind of wrist flexion, some kind of grip, maybe it's only certain digits. I had this in my right, where I would feel a ton of pain here, but it was pretty much, the sharpest was if I flexed my ring finger against pressure. and not curling my ring finger. It was like flat, sort of flat-ish. Like if I went totally flat, I wouldn't feel it. And if I kind of half bent it, I would feel that. And that makes sense because that's engaging one of the flexor, the finger flexors, the flexor digitorum muscles, without having that balance from the extensor. Okay, so it could be, you could feel pain from ulnar deviation. You could feel pain from grip. You could feel pain from, any kind of flexion of the hand and wrist, or even the pronator. Some people will feel pain in their elbow when they have some resistance against their pronation, because the pronator does connect through the common flexor tendon as well. But generally speaking, if you leave your hand relaxed and your wrist and everything and all these muscles relaxed, and you put some kind of that valgus pressure, if you put any kind of sideways pressure like that, you won't feel those kinds of pains that you do with the ulnar collateral ligament. You shouldn't feel any sharp pain. Yeah, eventually, like if you push really hard, it's going to be kind of unpleasant. But most of the time, if you have a healthy UCL and a damaged common flexor tendon, you won't really feel pain when doing this, okay? And usually it'll only take you a couple of minutes to figure it out. As far as treatment, well, I've shown everybody how I do the UCL rehab. And this is my last hold here. I'm doing, this is 30 pounds, and I'll do that for 30 seconds. The progress on this has been pretty quick. Generally, like I said, I'll go, I'll find a weight that I could do for 20 pounds. I already know what they are, so I just leave it on the machine for 20 seconds. And I just lean against it until I feel like I can do it for 30. And I move the weights up very slowly, something on the order of like 5 pounds per week. And the idea here is, I lost track of time. I don't know how long I've been holding this. But that tells you something. It means that I'm using a very safe weight. And if the weight's too light, you can always push harder on that chain. And it's usually very intuitive when you're ready to move up. You can tell if you're barely keeping that chain tight, or if you're really putting a lot of power into that chain and making it very tight, and you can use a lot more weight. Okay, so yeah, I'm ready to go up from 30 pounds now. No doubt, because I did all my holds there with 30 pounds for 30 seconds. But when you have a common flexor injury, the approach is a little bit different, and I'll try to detail that here in a minute. Just give me a moment to move this stand. When dealing with a common flexor tendon injury, like I said, there are a lot of different muscles that could cause the issue. Most of the time, for most arm wrestlers, it's pretty much just in this wrist flexion and some use of the hand. So basically when you cup, you'll get elbow pain when you cup. And if you're not very sure what causes the pain the most, you're going to have to experiment a little bit, okay? But you can do your isometrics exactly the same as you do with the belt that I just showed you. However, you're going to do them with different tools, okay? When it's a common flexor tendon injury, you have to make the tendon tight. You have to put the tendon under load in order to stimulate that response, that growth, that repair, okay? So I like using a wrist wrench for basically any one of these. The only one that it doesn't apply very well to is when you have an injury in the section that the pronator connects to. But for all these others, using a wrist wrench of a different size, depending on where it is in your hand and your wrist, can cover you, okay? And the idea is, if you're using a small wrist wrench, you're having to use a little bit more grip, and the effect on those finger flexors is a little bit stronger, whereas a larger wrist wrench, the effect on the hand is not so much. You don't have that curled finger pressure. It's more hand and then wrist. But the idea is the same. Flex up, and you need to find the position. It takes some experimentation. You find the position where you feel that pain. All right. You feel it just tickle a little bit. All right. For some people, you may have an injury in an area. Let's say it happened during a press and you got your wrist busted back. You might even need to do what's basically just a straight tricep push down like this with the wrist wrench. And that's going to be the spot that tickles that pain the most. For some people, it's going to be your normal ass side pressure with a lot of shoulder commitment, maybe without much shoulder commitment, all right? The point is, a lot of different places on that tendon can be inflamed. And you have to find, via some experimentation or some reason, if you know that a certain movement or a certain muscle flexion causes the pain, then you can target it with, mostly with a wrist wrench is a great tool, but there are other tools that you can use as well. But I pretty much suggest everybody just build a little PVC wrist wrench. It costs like $5 max, and you have a tool that you can use not only to train but to rehab yourself. Okay, so yeah, if you're dealing with pain when you flex your wrist, when you grip, get a hold of a wrist wrench. Do your isometrics that way. If you're dealing with a UCL pain, like I described, just use a simple belt, kick your wrist back, open your hand, find the angle that makes it hurt the most. Don't push to pain, all right? You want to just tickle that pain and slowly try to apply more and more force against that chain as you can. And yeah, that should, when you combine it with the other things like, just some movement, massage, all that nonsense, you combine it with those things, you should be able to fast track your recovery. And you may be astonished at how quickly you recover compared to total rest. You rest an injured tendon or ligament, it might be a couple of years before you're okay. And it won't even be strong then. It'll just be recovered. It'll just not be a hurt anymore. But you start doing this stuff, you'll be strong soon, not just healthy. All right, so that's all I got for you guys. I'll see you next time.